Good morning and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN. Alright, we're sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and welcome to Talking Points here on WESN Content Capital. My name is Keaton Shah. Happy to have you with us this morning. Alongside me is my co-host and colleague, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Keaton, and we're just being told we have to go for a break, so please stay tuned and we will be back right after this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best way tickets are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Talking Points here on WESN Content Capital. My name is Keisha Shaw. Thank you for joining us this morning for this edition of the program. I'll introduce my co-host and colleague. He's alongside me. Put a smile on your face, Sean Michael Small. I know, just put a smile on your face.
Apologies for the late start, ladies and gentlemen, but of course, we are still here to talk about the important issues of the day, and there are many, including a topic later on we'll get into with regards to, well, our energy industry, our energy sector, our place in the world when it comes to oil and gas and renewables, and, well, to some extent, what that means for us moving forward. It might be not necessarily the development that we think of when we say development, but it's true, we do have to also develop our energy sector further, if only for the fact that we, and the Prime Minister said this yesterday, our energy demands will continue to grow. But before we get into that, I think one of our callers, or maybe a comment on social media, remarked, you know, why is it always so heavy on talking points?
And they have a point, actually, because there are so many things that we could talk about, and we tend to hit the heavier topics. So we thank that viewer, actually, for their contribution, and, you know, reminding us that we should consider some lighter topics. And therefore, we're going to do a bit of both this morning. So yes, we are going to speak about Carnival, but there's the downside of Carnival as well. Now, whilst we're all celebrating and jovial that such Carnival celebrations and the festivities are in full effect, well, there's, of caused some controversy surrounding that as well. We all are aware of COVID-19. I don't have to go back into that. But yesterday on the program, we welcomed Acting ASP Ashraf Ali just to remind us about the TTPS's presence during this carnival season and that they're out in their numbers. And speaking about out in their numbers, the National Fet Promoters Association, the TNT Promoters Association, or TTPA, well, they're claiming that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is making it very difficult for them to host fets this carnival season. In fact, the president of the association, Jerome Priscilla, also known as Rome, has indicated that there's between a 15 to 50% decline in patrons, number of patrons actually participating in fets, and yet police officers are charging a ridiculous amount of fees because of crime in Trinidad and Tobago. He actually gave a very low blow, a low blow in the sense that is absolutely true, and but he's saying it also reflects on TTPS actions with respect to Carnival, because apparently, because crime is out of control in this country and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service aren't doing their part, he's making the argument that they've now deemed fets as hotspots. And because he's deemed, they're deeming fets as hotspots, they're sending a lot more police officers than they usually do. So some promoters actually have bills ranging from as low, and I meant that sarcastically, by the way, as low as $38,000 to as high as over $100,000. And so we already have a response from the TTPS. Acting Commissioner of Police, Joanne Archie, has indicated that she was unaware of the association's complaints when asked to respond to the association's complaints. So it's a bit of a limbo, isn't it? You want police protection, you have to have police protection, but at the same time it's too costly considering how everything in Trinidad and Tobago is working right now.
Is it Erla Christopher you meant?
Yes, my sincerest apologies.
So from what I understand, and I think herein lies the issue, the police are not meant to replace private security. We went through this topic last year around this time with the ASP, and when he comes back next week, we could get further clarification, because it's been a year. So I'm not a member of the TTPS, so I can't speak with all expertise with regards to why. But I will say this though, to some extent, fets are in a strange legal no man's land, because it's not an establishment of business, right? To what extent now is their security that they hire going to be enough to ensure that the event is safe? So I understand what the Fet promoters are saying, but at the same time, and perhaps the basis of why they should probably argue that they need less of a police presence is not that their ticket sales are less. I understand that. To them, it's the profit motive. It should be, well, look, the crowds are smaller. Why do we need as much police to ensure public safety with smaller crowds? Because if you don't link that together, if you just say, well, it's about a money thing for us, the police will say, well, look, this function is not about money. This is a function, I believe, that's necessary for you to have your fets in your public arenas that are not permanent venues, that don't have proper security plans and safety protocols, etc. It's also the reason why there'll be fire officers to monitor these things right through in case somebody decides to kind of break the rules and jam-pack too many people in too confined of a space.
A quick correction, I did mean Joanne Archie. She's the corporate communications officer for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, so my apologies for that. But a couple things. One, I'm wondering if this, because I understand that there's a need for protection at these fets. I'm just always curious as to the extent of the protection, or how the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, what do they do, or what is their criteria with respect to the number of officers that need to be present? Because where is the accountability of where all this money goes? So then I can make the argument that it's a racket.
Well,
I can make that argument because I have no clue where the money goes.
It's supposed to go into an account, I believe, if my memory serves correct, from the TTPS. It's not supposed to be paid in cash, right? And again, this is not some under-the-table private security deal off-duty police officers. These are on-duty police officers there for the public good. And if my memory serves correct, because it's been a year, so we'll have ASP Ali on next week to clarify this further. it is a public safety measure. And to some extent, I'm under the impression that it's essentially a cost of doing business. But again, I get it, the cost should scale, right? Now, the flip side to that is, it's kind of hard to know for certain, okay, what my actual crowd is going to be when I'm trying to push ticket sales up until the 11th hour, because I know for one fete this weekend, they had tickets that they were still trying to sell on Saturday. So you don't want to tell the police, hey, I have a crowd of X number, and then it turns out to be twice as much.
So there are many factors to look at this, fair enough. I am aware, by the way, of promoters who pay in cash, which is why I'm suggesting that there is some rackets involved. Because
right,
it's supposed to, they're supposed to go into an account. But as with everything in Trinidad, what is supposed to be done, or what is the proper thing to be done, that is not always followed. The flip side of it, Sean, would you say this is the cost of a failed society or failure in society that, and many a times, we understand and we perhaps recognize is cooperating with criminal elements?
Well, this is the thing. It's what is a fete, right? It's a place where people act very loosely with large amounts of alcohol. And there is no part of the world where you don't have a strong security presence in case of any sort of public disturbance. Now, if this was in the States, right, just any bar, right, or any major well-established bar, doesn't have to be a big bar, just a normal-sized bar would have some degree of security. And I don't necessarily mean one bouncer. One bouncer might be the sign that the bar is not necessarily doing that well, right? But might even go so far to have a team of bouncers, right, in order to ensure that, look, we're not going to have any public disruption. First of all, yes, it protects the bar's ongoing business operations and property. It also protects the patrons. It prevents escalation of any incidents, etc., right? So it's not just about pickpocketing and potential murder, although, yes, those aspects, I think, to some degree, when the TTPS say it's hotspots, if they also are including those aspects, well, yes, that is a sign that our crime problem is getting further out of control.
But the TTPS is not referring to this as hotspots. What the
promoters, right.
What they're arguing is because crime is out of control in Trinidad and Tobago, and the police service haven't necessarily done their part. They would deem a fact as a hotspot.
Here's the problem, right? Take that logic and really analyze it. So they're saying that crime is a problem in the country, right? But they don't want to have more police presence to ensure.
The argument isn't against a police presence. The argument is against what they're deeming as exorbitant cost for having such a police presence, which is why they're asking what is the criteria. There needs to be some level of clarification, because according to Joanna Archie, she's very much well aware that there were meetings that took place between the Promoters Association and the Trans-Tobago Police Service, but she was unaware of the complaints being put forward. So the issue is not, yes, we understand we need a police presence, we understand legally they have to be there. However, it is the cost that is really killing us at this point. They've recognized that there is a breakdown in society with respect to crime, but that does not necessarily mean that a fete should be deemed as a hotspot or looked at as a hotspot.
I mean, again, it depends on the event and what the manpower requirements are. Because for some of these excessively large events, 2 police officers not going to cut it. Right?
I think we know that.
Right. And I think it was a case of, because again, I do believe that in other parts of the world, the event would have to have a certain amount of security, because if it gets out of hand, the event will be shut down, right? The authorities will come in and the event will be shut down. So, but the way how our judicial system works and the laws works, it's not that it's worse, it's just I think it functions differently. So this is how we're going about it. And I understand that times are rough. The problem is I think what it is they're looking at the low-hanging fruit and they're saying, I don't need this to make money. Well, yes, but you do need certain things for your fete to actually exist. So again, now here's the thing. If the fete promoters wanted to compromise and say, well, look, let us have a cutoff point where we could tell the TTPS, this is our crowd, so that we don't end up having a police presence for twice the amount of people that we expect to show up. But then the point is, they can't try to have any last-minute ticket sales or any under-the-table ticket sales to pad their crowd. Because if it gets out of hand and it's twice the number of people, the police will probably come back and say, well, you know, next time, this not happening again, you're not getting that privilege,
well,
or you will get into some sort of trouble.
There may be a solution to what you're suggesting, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to actually educate myself as to the exact law, but I'm curious to know if scalping is illegal in Trinidad. I know it's illegal in the United States, but if scalping is illegal in Trinidad and Tobago, outside every fight you see that taking place, you can limit.
Well, for the police, here's the thing though. From what I understand scalping to be, those tickets are already sold from the promoter. So the promoter already counts those tickets as a sale. Whether somebody shows up to use those tickets or not kind of does not matter in this equation. Less people does not exacerbate the problem, more people do. So I understand, it all depends on the source of the tickets for the scalpers, right?
Yeah.
If the scalpers is just like a tool that the FET promoters are using to try to increase the price of last-minute ticket sales, well, then that's different. But if the scalpers are buying and reselling, then in this situation, it's not a big deal.
And I actually wouldn't doubt that. But then
with regards to the promoters,
I wouldn't doubt
one
that.
quick thing though, if you're the head of corporate communications for the TTPS, I do think you should find out what went on first before you comment on it. Now, if it was a case where Joan Archie was asked before she had a chance to do that by an inquisiting reporter,
which I think is the case.
Okay, well then,
and
then
I will give her the benefit of the doubt in that instance. So let's take a break here, ladies and gentlemen. There's actually one more thing to speak about with Carnival. The North Stand, currently the construction of the North Stand has ceased because, well, the steel used to construct the North Stand is missing. It's stolen. We'll be right back after this, ladies and gentlemen.
Make sure you get tickets early, got them tickets selling already. We have icons, yes, we have legends, and the young upcoming sensations. Become party, social commentary. We have something for everybody. Pressure for them, joker, faker, and lows. Come to Kaiso House.
Kaiso House in the Barcard, Queen's Park, Savannah, January 27th to February 17th, 2023. Tickets available at
Kaiso House in the Savannah, Crosby's Music Center, St. James, Kamule Restaurant, San Fernando, Bursa Complex, Grand Bazaar, and Tuco Main Office, Jenningham Avenue, Belmont. Meet me in the Barcard.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered,
the conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN Content Capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And before we get into the irony of TNT losing the steel for the North Stand, there is a more, well, in some ways mundane topic, and that is, of course, a conference yesterday at the Hyatt in Port of Spain, where multiple speakers spoke with regards to the energy situation of the region. That, of course, included our own Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, as well as Guyana's President, Irfan Ali. Now, the Prime Minister, he gave us a breakdown with regards to our energy sector situation and our petrochemical industry and the general philosophy of the government and why it was making the decisions it was making based on some of the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And those circumstances are, of course, the current economic situation with regards to inflation and food insecurity, as well as the fact that you have the war in Ukraine going on and how that impacts cost of energy, as we have seen with regards to natural gas supplies being cut from Russia to Europe for the most part. And the impacts these things have had both on the non-energy economic side as well as the price of energy itself on the continued development and expansion of the use of green renewable energy, as well as the fact that mentioning that such energy is important for TNT's future. So let's hear what the Prime Minister has to say, and then we'll break down what it may or may not mean for us moving forward.
The ongoing energy crisis, the role of fossil fuels, issues of energy security, and the cost and limitations of renewables have highlighted the challenges of the energy transition. The National Gas Company will shortly begin the round of discussions on new gas sales contracts. We are cognizant that the petrochemical industry is undergoing major changes. There's a universal and unrelenting movement towards low carbon and greening of petrochemicals. Therefore, if Trinidad and Tobago is to maintain its position as a leading exporter of ammonia and methanol, or even as a mere participant in the future international market, we must embrace the change. The initiatives of expansion of renewables in our energy mix and the development of a hydrogen economy is in keeping with our strategy for the greening of the economy, which includes the generation of renewables feedstock in the production of petrochemicals. The world needs energy in increasing quantities to support economic and social progress and to build a better quality of life, in particular in developing countries. The question is, who will supply that energy and in what forms and what volumes? It is Trinidad and Tobago's and its CARICOM neighbors, Guyana, Suriname, Barbados, and Grenada, our expectation to be ever cognizant of necessary changes to be made whilst remaining in the marketplace for energy as long as there is such a market for the careful supply of hydrocarbon products. Even with significant strides in improved energy efficiency, global energy demand is expected to rise by about 50%, as said earlier. All sources of energy are needed as the global population is projected to grow from current estimates of 8 billion to 10 billion by 2050. The United Nations in its 2022 Sustainability Report indicated goal number 7 is about ensuring universal access to clean and affordable energy by 2030, now deemed to be not achievable. However, rising commodity, energy, and shipping prices have increased the cost of renewables worldwide, and it is estimated that some 670 million people will not have access to energy in 2030. However, the transition to renewables is not without its challenges. Prices for wind and solar power increased nearly 30% in the past year due to global supply chain issues, significant price increases for components, and increases in labor costs in producing countries, reversing a decade of cost declines. Another hurdle, as encountered by Solar Parks project, is the competition with prevailing low cost of electricity in Trinidad and Tobago. Notwithstanding the current issues, the outlook for renewables is technically promising, but widespread cheap energy from these myriad sources are still some time away.
So that's the Prime Minister. Well, a brief summary of his presentation. Of course, it was much longer, and he went into some other detailed information. But the key point is, it seems as though, and we always question with regards to the government's focus on energy, and we also question the lack of development. Ironically, while I think to some extent there's still not enough effort being paid to other sectors of the economy, the energy sector, we have already acknowledged that it is important. And perhaps, or the development that we might not have necessarily given enough thought about that we do need, that is necessary on the horizon, is, of course, the question we always said, what happens to the economy when we run out of gas? Well, what happens to our electricity generation when we run out of either oil and gas or the oil and gas revenue to pay for power generation? And having the natural gas there as an easy supply for our power generating suppliers. So green energy initiatives for the region is very important for us to develop. The trick, of course, is the economics make it very difficult right now. One of the things that the Prime Minister said that I could include is that there would be both public and private partnerships and initiatives for capital, because capital to develop these things and to develop the infrastructure is one of the big questions right now in the developing world. And that solar park project that he mentioned on Monday is partnered with a private venture, and that's one of those aids from the outside world there to help countries like ours.
We must also understand that whilst we have heard from the Prime Minister as well as world leaders, and they acknowledge that fossil fuels is actually making way for renewable energy sources, we've heard time and time again, there still seems to be a hesitation for the rapid movement away from fossil fuels, simply because at this time, as Sean mentioned, the economics behind it is rather difficult. The thing is, with Trinidad and Tobago, you will see the construction of a solar park taking place right outside the Piarco International Airport. That's being funded by the European Union. But the Prime Minister also mentioned yesterday that Trinidad and Tobago experts, again, I don't know who these experts are, have advised that wind energy will be the best thing for Trinidad and Tobago as compared to solar energy. It's just a better option between both. So the Prime Minister has indicated that a study is to be conducted over various parts across Trinidad and Tobago where it will be most suitable to establish these wind farms. The thing is, the economics behind it is difficult for Trinidad and Tobago, and I'll focus on that because the President of Ghana, whom you will, I think you have
we have another clip.
Right. Yeah. Ghana right now is producing about 380,000 barrels of oil per day, right? They're also projected to produce roughly 560,000 by the third quarter of this year. And I think by 2025, close to 1 million barrels per day. That is what they are looking at. So Ghana's revenue is going to increase over the years. And Ghana is not going to move away from that anytime soon, simply because this is Ghana's time at the world stage. They're the fastest growing economy in the world. With that being said, they've also, whilst developing their oil and natural gas sectors, have also decreased carbon emissions, and they've implemented projects for renewable energy. Because I think Ghana is in a sense not only trying to move with the world now that they're on the world stage, but they're also learning lessons from countries, in my humblest opinion, such as Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, I literally now type that to say when speaking about the President's presentation.
And we've essentially made that mistake. Our dependency so long to the extent that our economy is now riding out the waves, or is riding as much as we can. Put it this way, Grenada recently found a small, I suppose, a field of natural gas. Trinidad and Tobago rushed and signed a memorandum of understanding with Grenada. There is potential in Barbados as well, because Barbados also produces natural gas. But the thing is, Barbados is not reliant on that. Yes, Barbados has a heavy tourism sector as well. But one of the things that I always pointed out to is that whilst they had a small gas field, Barbados, and export gas, at the same time, Did you know that Barbados is a producer and exporter of sugar to the United States?
Right.
So those are simple little things that you look at.
Now that last point there, because to me, I always thought the basic reason why sugar is not viable in TNT is because we don't have the economies of scale of other nations. But perhaps now Barbados, being a smaller nation, like Karen always says about Holland, really just puts a monkey wrench on that basic premise. Now, what we're seeing in China is that as the standards are being increased, labor costs in China has increased. So it being able to be the manufacturer of the world is becoming harder and harder. There's actually a thought where they say that Mexican labor not only is cheaper, but in some cases might actually be more skilled in the regards of that manufacturing sector, just because of the nature now of China's economy, of its education system, and its cultural demands that its population has as compared to a less prosperous nation and a smaller nation like Mexico. So with regards to Trinidad, it could be that the oil and gas and the boom of our economy priced us out of certain things. It was harder to be diverse because we weren't as competitive, perhaps not just because of scale, but
it's interesting how
the demands of society.
It's interesting how things change, because I think history shows that at one point we were a monocrop society.
Yeah.
Now we can be a multi-crop society, and I think Trinidad and Tobago has the labor force. I think we have the labor force.
The problem is the cost, the salary for that type of labor.
It's not as
the balancing
attractive
act,
as the salary in the oil and gas sector.
There are some jobs that don't pay well that people will do.
But
then there are other jobs that might be relatively easier. Like, okay, working a fast food establishment is not necessarily, it's looked down upon, but it's a paycheck that people seem to be very much, hesitant to take. But I don't want to...
Just before we go to that video, I just wanted to add, yes, I think we have the labor force, and you just added all that. I also think that we are a lazy people. And I just had to add that because that was very important.
Now, I will say this, timing is everything with regards to Guyana. With regards to Trinidad, we got our boom before green energy and that sort of transition or whatever. Also, everybody gets the benefit of TNT's hindsight and TNT's experience, because it's not just looking at Norway and looking, no, this is your neighbor who's very much like you, who has gone through, especially with Guyana, similar scale with regards to the situation. Guyana could also look to Venezuela as well. But I do think, though, that you hit the money on the head with regards to he's learning from the people around him, also perhaps learning from CARICOM's history with regards to the region and what the industry or the economy of the region means, because I think he's looking a bit towards the future, and perhaps our Prime Minister is too, but I have the words of President Ali himself. Here's why. He's looking at the situation regionally. Guyana is fine, but he is still looking to advance the course of the region. Let's hear his clip.
That every country in the region with potential in natural gas should be allowed to explore that potential to its fullest, aggressively, to ensure the energy security of this region. Here in Trinidad and Tobago, that opportunity exists, and that opportunity should be allowed to blossom for the benefit of the people of this region and the globe. But not only our energy requirement in CARICOM, but if you look at what Cuba, DR, Haiti eventually, and going up the Guyana Shield with Suriname, French Guyana, Guyana, Northern Brazil, it is an enormous opportunity for a holistic conversation on securing our energy requirement for the region along the corridor, both in demand and in supply. So we in CARICOM all have lofty renewable energy targets. But the reality is that the energy demands in our countries continue to rise, and our energy systems are being challenged to meet our growing population centers and appetite for energy services. If you go through all the countries in the region and say, what is your priority in energy now? They will tell you the efficiency in the transmission system. And we can't even raise the capital sometimes to deal with the improvement of the transmission system to give you that efficiency. So while still quite capital intensive, renewable energy will and must be pursued. That will be very clear. This is not an argument against renewable energy. We must pursue every opportunity at renewable energy, and we have tremendous opportunity. This technology that is being deployed at an unprecedented level does not come foolproof. If you don't believe me, ask those who are trying to get batteries today. Where are the batteries coming from? Where will the replacement come from? What are the natural sources of the battery? And what is the viability of those sources? Where is the assessment of that? Who is doing the assessment? These are questions we have to answer. Because if we build our entire system on solar, and 25, 30 years from now, we are faced with these challenges, what are we going to say to the population?
Now, the batteries that the president of Guyana was talking about there was essentially the energy storage for things like wind and solar. Because in theory, if you want to just use that technology by itself or those technologies together, well, you're going to run into periods at night when the wind dies down, so you essentially will have zero energy generation, or the wind might die down at times on a cloudy day. So you need to have storage. Also, there might be times when you have a windy, sunny day and you have too much energy on your grid. That's bad for your grid. You need somewhere for that energy to go, otherwise it could overload your power grid and damage your infrastructure. So battery technology is the other side of the technological complication and cost, because not only is the wind and solar pricey because it can't give you reliable, consistent energy, also the storage technology, as well as the wind and solar technology, it's still expensive, it's still in its infancy. So that's what President Ali was talking about. That's a major part of the infrastructure in order for those things to be independent. Right now, we rely on natural gas to be the buffer to make up the shortfall, because natural gas plants could be started relatively quickly, unlike coal and nuclear power.
This leads me to the question, what is the argument put forward by the Prime Minister? And I hope this will be elaborated on further, whether it be from him or the Minister of Energy and Energy Industry, Stuart Young, as per the justification that wind energy or wind energy farms are the better option for Trinidad and Tobago.
That's a good question, because I do think that TNT probably should use a mix, but I could see where there'll be unreliability of essentially enough sun at certain times of the year, and then we run into problems like during the rainy season. The other thing is your angle to where you are on the wheel will dictate the angle that the sun is basically shining, and that dictates the potential solar gains on a daily basis.
A prime example is that we're actually in the dry season, and we're seeing a lot more rain over the last couple of days. But very quickly, I just wanted to point out, President Irfan Ali raised a very good point. He said, yes, we're capitalist in nature, but the costs of these things are so exorbitant. Our government's going to look at it as a convenience for them, because it's going to cost a lot. Are we going to make money off of it?
One of the points he made is, of course, the UN and countries, larger countries, are pushing green energy, and he's saying, well, these things have high capital costs. Where is the capital coming from? That's one of the points he made. So, of course, the Prime Minister did point out that there are initiatives, but President Ali pointed out that some of the money available, right, for developing nations to get assistance is not necessarily enough. And the developing world are the most vulnerable, ironically, not just now with food security, but also with energy security, and they will drive the need for fossil fuels well beyond this decade, or even beyond the time frame that the UN had its initial goals, which now, as was pointed out, is unachievable. But President Ali said something, was talking about something I think is very important. He was looking at the energy demand and supply of the region and was saying, well, what if we integrate it? What if we look at it differently? It's not just about one nation. He was looking at both the Caribbean, CARICOM, all the way up to Haiti,
Well,
Cuba, all the way down to Suriname.
Very quickly before we
Brazil,
we go to the break, a couple of things. One, regional integration
Yes.
has not been recognized as it really wanted to be. The purpose of CARICOM has not been fully implemented. And the
CARICOM doesn't even include the whole region.
Exactly, but even that in itself has
Yes,
not been
even
fully
the
implemented.
members,
So
yeah.
regional integration still has a long way to go. So I think President Irfan Ali is at least trying to push for that, of course, to Ghana's benefit as well. Ghana could supply the Caribbean with food as well.
But he
by the
did
way.
say all natural gas resources, all nations in the region should exploit aggressively their resources.
But think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Venezuela is opening up a bit. We're seeing the United States more and more look at Venezuela as an option, and they've actually given ExxonMobil permission to explore further in Venezuela. Venezuela, who has the largest reserves of natural gas in the world, well, if they open up, that's just going to slow down the process a bit more towards renewable energy.
Well, yes and no, because right now the cost of renewable energy means that, and the energy crisis means that people don't care. And if people don't care, and if it costs too much, we won't get there. We can't force green energy on society. It will literally cost too much on our already overburdened global economy. What the biggest indicator for the transition, in my opinion, and this is from what I understand from studies done with the UN, right? The biggest indicator is the poverty level of the world. When people get out of poverty, they are more able to afford renewable energy, and they're also more willing to pay more for that more expensive energy because the development of it is going to cost. I think, however, also moving forward, what President Ali with regards to regional integration, I think the need of that for our energy future, because small nations trying to do it in a block, and Guyana has large geographic size but a small population. Small nations trying to do it in silos, it might be too inefficient. So by banding together and having an integrated plan, it might help now pool our resources. Now, how we do that because of the distance between the islands, that is not so easy to
We're going
figure
to have
out.
to take a quick break. I have a lot more to say on this. Unfortunately, I can't due to time. Simply put it this way. Go and look at electric cars right now. The greatest thing that the world has looked at as moving away from gasoline cars. Where are we getting the products and the supplies to produce the batteries for the electric cars?
The electricity still has to come from somewhere.
Exactly. Even there's a battery shortage throughout the world, and Transbig is already feeling that, by the way, with respect to cars. Car dealers will tell you that they're finding it very difficult to import the supply that is necessary to equal the demand. So
yeah,
that is why
car battery, big infrastructure batteries.
all of that actually, ladies and gentlemen, contribute to the discussion and contribute to this situation here. But we have to take a quick break, and when we return, well, the conversation continues. We'll be right back after this.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Living in victory every day.
In
inspire, motivate, encourage, hope. It's about topical issues. It's about everything that you would want to know about hope, about life. At the end, you're going to say, yes, if he can do it, I can do it too. If she can, I can do it too.
No matter what they say, living in victory every day.
Nicole Lawson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN Content Capital. We have to just quickly touch on this topic, but it's whether or not governments see green energy right now as an investment meaning there will be returns upon it, given that we're capitalist in nature, or whether or not they just see it as a cost. Public-private partnerships have always been deemed the best and most suitable way to go about with these things. It's whether or not our government is willing to do that.
I think to some extent they are.
Yes and no.
That's why I said to some extent.
To some extent, they are willing to. I say no because it depends on who the company is and who operates or owns that company.
I mean, if transmission, because you lose a lot of power when you transmit it through power lines, right? So it's one thing for our network, but like if Trinidad was an energy supplier to the region, by the time it reaches Puerto Rico, you lose, like, the efficiency is horrible. Now, technology might improve that, but that's a different topic. However, if it was possible, it would be, to me, nuclear would be right now the ready-made option.
And yet the world is moving away from nuclear.
Which, the irony, of course, is it's based on technology from the 60s or the 50s or maybe even the 70s or 80s. But current technology, and this is one of the things, policy on a lot of things for laws governing medical procedures, for laws governing things like energy, or policies governing these things. It's based off of technology from the last decade, and things have advanced. Not the last decade, sorry, the last, millennia, the last century.
It's just too risky. It's just too risky. But anyway.
It's technically, more people have died from wind turbine accidents than from nuclear energy accidents.
More birds have died from wind turbine.
Oh, definitely more birds have died. But more people as well.
Which, by the way, one of the cons of having a wind turbine.
No, there are new wind turbines
that actually do not have turbines.
That don't have blades,
yeah.
yes.
Which is the most amazing thing to me. Sorry, they have a turbine, they don't have blades. Turbine is how they actually produce the energy. But they don't have blades, which I think is rather amazing. But anyway, as we move on this morning, we start off with Carnival. We start off with a story that's probably a bit heavy on Carnival.
Yeah, I was like, well, this is not the lighter side of life.
As within Trinidad, everything goes. So somebody, I saw this circulating on social media, somebody actually was trying to get rid of a fridge. They just wanted a bigger fridge, and a very good fridge, so they put it out on the pavement, and they said, free, if you want, you can take it. So this was a sign. Apparently, after 2 days, nobody took it. As soon as he put a price tag on it, somebody thief it. As things here in TNT go. But anyway.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
I'll read for you the exact excerpt from the article. Work on the North Stand at the Queen's Park Savannah in Port of Spain, the home of Carnival 2023, has been halted after the startling discovery that steel beam components for the construction of the stand have gone missing. Apparently, some government minister wants to build an apartment for themselves. Workers had to down tools and leave the site yesterday as work could not continue due to the missing steel. Sources say that the steel components may have gone missing while the components were stored outside the Carnival season. This comes just 2 weeks before the biggest show, Carnival at the Queen's Park Savannah, the National Panorama semi-finals, is scheduled to take place. Well, we're not entirely sure if we're going to have a North Stand. We're not entirely sure where these steel beams were stored outside of the Carnival season. And why are we saying that they're missing?
Here's the thing. This comes back to an issue that I have with regards to a minor issue of development, right? I think we need to develop green energy. We need to develop our road networks. We need to develop a lot of things. We need to decentralize, move our government out of Port of Spain so that it's in a more central location, or decentralized so people have easier access to government services. With regards to Carnival, at the time there were 2 projects They had billboards, right? They were next to each other on opposite sides of the road. That is the Queen's Park Savannah. One was Napa, and the other was what was supposed to come in place of the grandstand, North Stand setup, right? What we got was Napa, and then snap elections and the dream of that carnival. I can't remember what it was called. That big carnival dome or whatever did not materialize. Napa was for intents of it looked like a ready-made structure. It was relatively easy to construct, etc., from China. Except the actual functionality of Napa is questionable at best and almost non-existent for what it's supposed to be at worst. And I always thought that, and then when the People's Partnership just rebuilt a grandstand, I felt it was compounding an error. We didn't need Napa, but you knocked down the grandstand and we could have had something a bit more modern with potentially more functionality, right? That could have offered us more than just, I get it, the grandstand, North Stand is traditional, but we could have had a more modern experience with regards to the center of Carnival. But we didn't get that in the end. We literally just knocked something down and built a replacement.
Every year.
Right? Well, no, the grandstand was knocked down and it was rebuilt by the partnership. The North Stand is what the North Stand is. And I'm just like, what, why, how, who? Right. And I just feel as though now this just compounds that situation where we can't even, the plan is to have a North Stand that we could deconstruct every year, and now the storage of it is in question. We can't even handle that.
All right, so according to NCC Chairman, this is very funny, by the way. I am sorry. NCC Chairman Winston Gypsy Peters noted that this issue was not unique to this year.
Really?
Steel from the North Stand has been missing in the past with other versions of the North Stand design.
Or other versions? These thefts have been so bad, they've had to redesign the North Stand. Is that what you're saying?
It is understood that the company Saran Sampath Construction Limited was awarded the contract and is currently sourcing replacement steel components to replace the missing components at the completion of the North Side.
Peter, I would just like to point out that you cannot have the mother of all carnivals when you only have half of the stands on the stage.
The thing is, for me...
Right? You only have half of the stands in Savannah. We get half of a mother of all carnival, folks. Half of a mother of all carnival.
There's so many questions. Yes, I am laughing. I'm laughing because oh my gosh, sweet CNT will not change at all. But for me, overall, I'm trying to figure out how in the world is this allowed to happen? I want to know so many things. Where was it sourced from? What was the estimate of the steel? Was the estimate for the construction, was it initially underestimated, and so this missing steel is something done on purpose? Was it stolen? You know, is it that we just misplaced it and we suddenly can't find it? You know, where was it stored outside of the carnival season? You know, what's the cost of the construction of the grandstand?
Is it that they get steel, they make the North Stand, and at the end of carnival they take it down and then use the steel for something else, so we have to buy new steel every time? Because I could imagine, you know, this is not to just keep the steel around. It might not be practical.
You don't want to keep the steel around. Steel. If you're going to keep steel exposed to the elements,
exactly.
In this case, it is actually very much. It's painted and it's oxidized. You don't want to keep steel exposed to the elements. At the same time, I'm not entirely sure. I can't answer that question for you. All I will simply say is let's wait to see. NCC Chairman Winston Gypsy Peters is not making any further comments until he gets a report on the matter.
Here's the thing, though. I'm not surprised.
None of us are surprised.
I'm not surprised.
Nobody is surprised.
You know, you ask the question, like, how does this happen? I don't need to know the details of how it happened. I know that the way how our administration of various parts of state entities goes, this is just par for the course. This is par for the course. Remember, sometimes the consequences are dire, as we have seen last year into this year, right? I don't necessarily want to bring it up because I don't want to really compare the two or make it seem that there's a comparison between the two situations. One is very serious. This is much less dire consequences of having administration and management and supervision and no annual administrative reports, etc., etc., etc. This is the much less dire of consequences where Carnival, the National Carnival Commission has a little bit of egg on its face. No one has died, no one was hurt. The monetary losses aren't that extreme. However,
are you sure about that?
Well, to be fair, you might have a point there. I don't know how much is missing. However, no matter how large or big the monetary losses are, it's a bad sign that we can't even get a simple annual function right.
I would just simply say, do not be too quick to jump to conclusions. This may not be an administrative issue, because if it was a private contract that was given out, this is more so the doing of the contractor. So we'll wait for that report.
Awarding of contracts. How are they awarded? Who selected this guy? Why is he qualified? Sounds familiar?
I will only conclude.
Had a whole commission requirement.
Let me conclude, Sean. You've had your chance to speak and we have to go for news. Calm down, buddy. Trinidad and Tobago has skilled labor. We do have skilled labor. Because if we have the most skilled thieves in the world, we don't need to be taught anything. We'll be right back after this.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Opposition MP advocates for better conditions for Brasso Venado students. Former government minister weighs in on RIC proposed TNTech rate increase. 25 arrested in Dabadi for gambling offences. And internationally, Japan Prime Minister says country on the brink due to falling birth rate. Now for the details. Tabakit MP and Shadow Minister of Education Anita Haynes is continuing to fight for schools that are still inaccessible due to bad roads. Within just mere weeks of the new school term, the Tabakit MP raised this issue.
I had the cause to raise 3 schools in my rural community who they were unable to open because of access roads. Today, one of those schools still remains closed, Brasso Venado Government Primary School.
Meanwhile, the MP also advocated for migrants to have accessibility to the education system.
But the fact is that the persons are here, and children are here. And with the absence of a robust system, we must assume that they are here at the very least in the medium and long term. What happens when these children are left out of the education system? Where do they go? Where do you find a space? So if we exclude at the earliest stages, 5-10 years later, we would be facing a massive problem in Trinidad and Tobago.
Former Government Minister Mariano Brown says the proposed increase in TNTech rates by the RIC may be a difficult proposition for TNTech. He weighed in on the issue via WESN's AM Prime.
It buys gas from NGC, which is sold to the producer companies, and they charge a fee for converting it to electricity. Now, the price of gas, of course, is subject to international market considerations. But TNTech does not pay world market prices. It buys gas at a considerably reduced figure. And even that is difficult for it to pay. So in those circumstances, you're looking at a very difficult proposition, because your key input is underpriced. You don't have enough cash to pay for it on the basis of the electricity rates.
He questions what may be the RIC's motive for this move.
I think the RIC is sending a message, but I'm not clear what the message is. Right? Is TNTech meant on that basis to, in terms of changing its business model, to cut costs, and to cut costs on those circumstances, it also means that it has to cut its distribution fleet. It has to cut the number of people that it has on the road, and that has other implications moving forward. So this is a Gordian knot.
One person was arrested for the selling of alcohol without a license and keeping a gaming house, while 24 others were arrested for assembling to gamble on a Saturday at Piaco Old Road, Dabadi. The arrests took place during a road check exercise in the Maloney Police District. The group of individuals ranging from ages 19 to 57 included residents from Dabadi, Caroni, Arima, Mount Hope, Aruka, Tunapuna, Marval, Aranguez, and Port of Spain. In international news now, Japan's Prime Minister says his country is on the brink of not being able to function as a society because of its falling birth rate. Fumio Kishida said it was a case of now or never. Japan, population 125 million, is estimated to have had fewer than 800,000 births last year. In the 1970s, that figure was more than 2 million. Birth rates are slowing in many countries, including Japan's neighbors. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, we had an interesting show today. Of course, we spoke about the need for police presence at events as part of their license at the top of the morning, at the top of the hour. And then, of course, we went into the energy conference hosted by TNT's Energy Chamber at Hyatt on yesterday. Irfan Ali, President of Guyana, he had a lot to say with regards to regional integration, as well as with regards to the push for renewable energy, the need for it, but also the negatives or the cons of moving into the difficulties. And our own Prime Minister also spoke with regards to what our philosophy was moving forward. A philosophy which I agree, at least in general principle. The finer details, well, we have yet to see them. We will see them as it rolls out. And then we ended, of course, with, well, steel for the North Star is missing. How much steel is that exactly, and how much that's going to cost the NCC's?
Somebody steal the steel.
But folks, now we're going to open up the phone line, and of course, we do ask callers to please don't wait until the end of the half hour. Call in now while the phone lines are open. Both phone lines are open. Hopefully, we won't have any connectivity issues with them. If there's any problems with your connection and we are disconnected, please feel free to call in again. We will try to make allowances for you to be heard. Also, with that said, we want as many people as possible to be heard, so don't try to talk out one point and please be succinct.
Yes,
be efficient with your time.
Don't pull a Sean on a Sean. Be precise with your points. Like, concise and
yeah, and don't do a Keaton,
no dad jokes.
Talking in circles with no point. Shucks.
No dad jokes.
Also that too. No. Viewers can give dad jokes. That's fine. Keaton is too young for dad jokes.
Thank you, Sean. That's the nicest thing you've said.
Don't mind the fact that Keaton, internally is older than all your viewers.
He's right, though. I am an old soul. A very, very old soul.
And of course, when you're live on air with us, please mute your television so that we don't have any confusion with regards to your hearing or listening to our responses and the conversation.
Yes, turn on the volume.
But with that said, I'm hearing the phones on the ring, but just before we get the caller, food insecurity also came up on Monday. Regional integration, I think what the President of Guyana is saying, and hopefully this is with consultation with our own Prime Minister, meaning we will be a part of that, something to push forward. The region strengthen numbers with some of these challenges that we're all facing.
This might be the greatest push for CARICOM in a long time. Caller line with us from Dabadi. Good morning, caller.
I want to say wonderful program as usual, and I have more questions than more questions than comments.
Okay.
You can tell me any reason or reasons why CARICOM has failed, why the CSME has failed, why has nobody in Trinidad and Tobago held responsible for things like pieces of the North Star missing, and somebody should be held liable for that, and fingers are pointing at the NCC. we need to call a spade a spade. I'm in total agreement with the points you all raised this morning concerning regional integration. And we know that since Federation, which was a failure, didn't come to pass. But if CSME ever is agreed upon and fully implemented, I think that the Caribbean as a whole will be beneficiaries. Thank you, guys. Wonderful program.
Thank you very much. So I have with me, and I could quickly read this for you if you want. I don't know if you want to respond first, because I did write a paper as per the failures of CSME.
My basic theory, and I'll just look to the EU, I think the problem is, or at least one of the hurdles, is the fact that when you have multiple different nations, that's multiple different agendas. And how do you come to a quick consensus on various decisions that impact the region if you're trying to move as a unit? Even in the United States, a country with multiple sub-states, they're called states, where the various different agendas makes things difficult at times. And we see that in the EU. That's why the UK tried Brexit. The timing probably could have been better, but that's in hindsight. EU has its own problems where its memberships are at odds with each other, and there are various...
So I'll respond to CSME after this caller from Shigonis. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning.
This morning, papers, I see the Prime Minister have finally listened to your program and heard what I say about subsidization, in that you must not over-subsidize, because that is the problem with energy and electricity. Because by subsidizing energy and electricity, all these new forms of energy, you have to subsidize that too. Right? So you just increase your subsidy. Whereas the true criteria should be affordability. And if we were doing that, we wouldn't go on boasting all about what we had the cheapest electricity in the world and whatnot, because there is no fame in that. And that applies to all the subsidies, including flour. Why should we subsidize the foreigners and our own local people have substitute for these? Any questions, gentlemen?
No questions, Professor.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Have a good day.
Yeah, that's a good point. The economy is now based on the balance point of that subsidized electricity. So it's going to be like the gas subsidy. You know, as the energy prices goes up, we're going to have a lot of growing pains because we've allowed ourselves, it's not just, oh, we like cheaper energy. No. Business models are set up based on that. And I think
Based off of what? Sorry.
Based off having the cheaper electricity, the reduced cost. And I think if we had reduced costs because of efficiency, that's fine. But subsidies are ultimately unsustainable.
Precisely what business model is that based off of the cheap electricity?
Because when you look at costs, you basically say my light bill is only going to be this amount. And when you increase the light bill on everybody, it's going to be similar
in that sense, fair enough. I was a bit confused at first as to what you said. But with respect to CSME, there were 4 main points as to why it has... It hasn't failed, but it hasn't been fully implemented. So
hasn't done anything.
It hasn't really done anything.
It's just there.
The first one is that there seems to be stagnation. There seems to be a reluctance from members of CSME to allow free movement within the islands. And the thing is, movement, people, labor is the backbone of any economy. And because of that reluctance to allow free movement to the extent of you can work and you can stay on this island for so long, and by the way, that does exist. You know, there were issues with respect to Jamaicans and Trinidad and Tobago a couple of years ago. That's led to a certain level of stagnation. So there's that high reluctance as well. That's one reason. Another reluctance is there seems to be a lag or an unwillingness to fully implement the policies that were actually laid out in CSME. CSME was supposed to help so much with respect to a currency system, with respect to a tax system, with respect to a labor system. Because there has been that lag, it's allowed for the wealthy economies such as Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados to dominate CSME, and it's allowed smaller economies to become a bit more dependent. Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados being the more exporting countries as compared to the smaller islands which have similar economies mostly agricultural, they're at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
There are two other points. I'll raise those two other points after this call from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
As it relates to the CSME, Caribbean integration, I think the people in the Caribbean are more integrated than the leaders. That is my issue, because I have been through the Caribbean over the last 30 years, up and down the Caribbean, and I can tell you there is more integration among the people. This is a leadership problem. The same issue that we had with the Federation, with those leaders at the time, is the same issue now. Right, the first point. Secondly, the North Stand issue. They probably need to check with the contractor who put up the pods to see if the steel not in that person here. Yeah?
I hear you.
That is my second point. Third thing is this issue with renewable energy.
Yeah.
I am appalled by when I listen to the Prime Minister talk about that. We have had so many opportunities to do this. We don't even have a program where when you go to approve a plan for a house, that you put in a solar water heater. Solar water heater don't need batteries, you know.
Yep.
Trinidad and Tobago has an average of 7.5 hours sunlight, 365 days a year. Okay, of course there will be certain times of the year between January and probably July where you have much more sun. You have 10 hours and that kind of thing. However, our issue here is not we don't have sun, you know, we don't have the will.
Yep.
We can have a hybrid system where people have either solar panels and on businesses, government offices, where we can reduce our consumption during the day, and at night you rely on the grid. And we have not. I have discussed this with people that had the opportunity to implement this, and everybody, just as the professor said, this boast of we had the cheapest electricity or cheapest energy in the Caribbean and in the world was so stupid. And we continue with, now that we're in a crunch, we now talking about renewables again. Little St. Vincent and the Grenadines have solar plants augmenting their power supply, you know.
Caller, as soon as this energy conference is over, you're not going to hear about renewable energy for quite some time.
Now, yes, that might be very true. Caller, one thing though, I will say for the national, with regards to large-scale projects like that, I actually don't mind, because what worked for St. Vincent might not have necessarily worked for us. When Germany tried to go green, it essentially quadrupled the price of electricity in Germany. So,
yes, son, but what I'm saying quickly is that we need to decentralize it. We have to stop looking at the state want to do everything. This is a state project.
I agree with you, and I do think that it's more efficient if we do it that way, where individual homes might have their own solar panels, etc. We don't have to worry about transmission and large infrastructure batteries to store the energy, blah blah blah.
But Germany might not also be the best example, given that.
I mean, Australia, I think their power.
Given their climate and given their climate and economy.
ICNTT has a program, and they've had this program over 20 years now. I have known about this program over 20 years. Because I had a friend who benefited from it. He was in a rural area. He had a farm, and there was no electricity in the area. And he applied to ICNTT, and they supplied the solar panels and the batteries.
And Kola, why isn't this marketed more? Why don't they educate the public on this more?
Well,
no, because I'll be honest with you, you kind of just educated me. I was not aware of that.
I wasn't aware of that either. But that's a failing of. That's across the board failing.
Anyway, Caller, thank you very much.
Thank you, Caller. That's a good point. That last point there especially was very good. I do feel, and I think we brought this up sometime previously, I can't remember if it was off air or on air, where the information dissemination in this country, first, yes, with governments and public services and public entities, but also to some extent even with private entities, I don't think is up to snuff. I might have said that last week, Thursday, with our guest there. I don't think it's up to snuff, or maybe our discussion after. But this is definitely, if there's a program like that in ICNTT,
We should be made more aware of these things. But Kola, you mentioned we don't have the will. I agree with you, but I would also add to that I don't think we have the forward-thinking approach as other countries. They're not thinking about that. As long as these things exist, why do we need to think of something else?
I do know, you asked this question, and I do think it's even more pertinent now after hearing the caller. Who is advising the government on these things?
I don't know who the expert is.
Right?
We have a caller on there with us from Maribel. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Hi, good morning.
You're live.
Hi, fellas. Yeah, you're talking about the North Stand and that.
Mm-hmm.
I have been mentioning this to you 2 years ago when you first started the program. Let me tell you how this goes. I've been involved in this nonsense for over 30, 40 years. The North Stand, they have pods, exact pods that they cover for the foundation with big 1-inch, 2-inch bolts. After Carnival, every year, the same contractor for over 30 years has been given the contract for the North Stand. When the North Stand is finished, they dismantle it. The Ministry of Works and the North Stand gets self-employed guys, and they take it to a hangar in Chaguaramas. All the booths that around the savannah, you notice every 2 years they have to put new plywood. Because they take all the plywood down to the hangars in Chaguaramas. What happened, since we didn't have the North Stand for a couple of years, whoever has access to the hangars have access to the steel. And this is how it works every single year. Somebody boys will go down there, plywood, and say, new stand. Then they start building food courts all the way around to QRP now. And this is how it has been working for 25 years and more with one contractor. He started off the North Stand stage with us, with barrels. And we used to put barrels, and on the barrels we would put plywood. They then cast it. And everything goes down to the hangars. Who has the access to that? Guess who?
The
And
contractor.
that's where everything goes, and that's where they have a wholesale sale. Hey, I need 40 sheets for my house. I need this. They see steel there for 4 years, no North Stand. They say, let's take this. Like
Yeah.
they're never going to use the North Stand again. I'm gone.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you.
caller.
Sean asked a question this morning. What happens with the steel after Carnival? And now we have an idea. Thank
I
you.
actually did not want to think
And
that
same contractor for the last 30
I mean,
years.
I don't know if that makes more sense to hold on to the steel or to use the steel and buy. Maybe it makes more sense to hold on to the steel, but then for the life of me, I know of certain areas that have 24-hour security. Like literally people are hired just to act as security for locations.
Sean, if you see half the security guards in this country, you realize anybody could be a security officer.
Well, I mean,
half the security guards in this country, they could slap a fancy shirt on you and call us security guards.
well, the rate things are going, half the country could also be, in the Coast Guard. The rate how this is going.
The way things are going, you and I may probably soon have to work as security guards.
Yes, and
But anyway, very quickly with respect to CSME again.
wait. Oh, I just need to ask. Just throwing this out there. Who's paying to buy back the steel? Because I'm pretty sure NCC's budget did not include new steel as a line item.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
The-
If
to
there is a racket involved, you sure about that?
To this extent, I don't think they're accustomed to this much getting stolen. As the caller from Maraval said, it was not in operation for a couple of years, so people...
But that's the thing, my friend.
We are when the cats away, the mice will play. Idle hands.
We are basing it off of the little information we know. We don't know how much steel was stolen or if it was stolen.
I think it's more than they would have expected if they had any expectations.
What if that's
which they might have?
Probably the security guard guarding that hangar was in lockdown or quarantine. Who knows?
Yes,
Anyway,
that security guard probably wasn't there half the time. His partner signed the book and they all left early. Telling you.
We should try that
Telling
sometime. Anyway.
I'm pretty sure the audience at the very least will notice 2 empty chairs on a set.
With respect, we can work that out. Technology.
We could.
Technology is an amazing thing.
Okay.
As per CSME, the two other points is that being a fully integrated member as per CSME, or the intention of CSME, was you actually giving up a bit of your sovereignty. Now, this was the argument put forward by the United Kingdom when they exited, the European Union, Brexit. But there's been a great reluctance by islands and governments across the Caribbean to actually give up some of their sovereignty in order to fully implement and integrate CSME. That being said, they're trying to implement CSME while still being completely sovereign, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. And what's the last point?
The last point is, and this is a very interesting point, you know, the caller from San Fernando said the people around the Caribbean are more integrated. This is a government situation.
Leadership, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there is so much diversity in the Caribbean, there are a lot of differences.
Yes.
And scholars have made the argument that that diversity and that differences is also a keepback.
People might make the assumption, oh, we're all from the Caribbean, and a lot of these nations are the main demographic is you know, Afrocentric or from Africa. So we should all, no, we're not all the same, right? I think I saw a video where one scientist was basically, it might have been Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's basically, look, don't assume that Africa is just all the same. There's genetic diversity, obviously in different areas there will be cultural and regional diversity, but it's not like one race of people. There are multiple races with different genetics, with different average heights, average weights, physical capabilities, etc., etc. That's why you have both sprinters as well as marathon runners coming out of either Africa or African descent. So it's not like just one race that we could just homogenize and try to simplify, well, yes, you're all the same. No, it's not so. So why would the Caribbean be that way?
So essentially, being a diverse people as the Caribbean is, it's a blessing because they say that we're a melting pot. It is also...
Well, right. Then, of course, there's the non-African descent.
Disadvantage of it as well. There's a disadvantage.
You do know the irony. You gave the details, but all four of those things that you mentioned there, it comes back down to the same thing. Different agendas, right? And how do you now treat with those agendas to try to prioritize things?
Maybe we'll hear more from Irfan. We have a caller on the line with us from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Quick one again, gentlemen.
Quick.
The Eastern Caribbean dollar
was
launched in 1965. The euro was launched in 1999. Do you know that, and you can do some research on this, that the European Union came down to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank to study that currency before they implemented the euro? That was the basis.
Caller, I have always made the argument that if CARICOM is to learn anything, look at the OECS, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. Thank you very much for raising that point, caller. Thank you so much. Excellent point. By the way, we close the phone lines right now, ladies and gentlemen, due to the time. But you know, it's not going to take scholars, it's not going to take professors, it's not going to take a study, or we need to put together this committee or this panel. The OECS is the best example, and they're right there.
The problem is, first of all, let me say, communism is so bad, it's not an option. Despite what some people, you know, newfangled, new wave thinking wants to say, go back to socialism, whatever. That's not an option. But democracy has its cons. It's the best thing that we have,
very
but
many
it
cons,
has its cons. And one of those things is when leaders are basically swapped out because of elections. So that and all makes things difficult, because when Prime Minister Keith Rowley is negotiating with President Irfan Ali, and potentially one or both of them, plus other leaders in the region, you know, they might be elected out of office. Or in the case of Prime Minister Keith Rowley, he's old enough where he's considering very much about retirement. And when you get a new leader in, now it's a new individual with potentially a new agenda. If it's a new political party, it's definitely a new agenda for the most part. All of these things makes things extremely difficult. But now with the OECS, it's a smaller sample size.
I don't think your camera is working.
I don't know. So with the OECS, I mean, it's not apples to apples, it's apple to oranges, but there's still a lot of value understanding that example. But I think it still comes back down to, yes, we could learn from how they've integrated, but it still comes back down to, at some point, we have to compromise some of our agenda to give in to some of everybody else's agenda, and vice versa.
Good luck with that.
And vice versa.
Good luck with
that. If we want to be integrated, that's what it's going to take.
people don't want it to be integrated. For example, Trinidad fought and argued for the CCG to be established here. And guess what?
Exactly.
Guess what?
Exactly.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we have to close now. Thank you very much to all our callers for their contribution this morning. And thank you very much to Sean for those videos. Denise Martin, thank you for news on the hour. I would like to thank my directors this morning. But oh God, all they sleeping this morning, man. Anyway, Sean Michael Small, hope you have a good day. Hope you didn't start off smiling. I hope you end the show smiling.
I'm a little bit better with regards to our energy future. Just a little bit. You know, I have to see more about how it's going to roll out and the details. But at least some of the things that was said, I agree with. It's the initial folks. We'll see what it looks like in about 5 to 10 years.
Some of the things that were said at last year's energy conference, we agreed with.
Exactly.
We felt better afterwards.
Exactly.
Good luck, my friend.
Exactly. Yeah, I know, right?
Anyway.
I should not hold my breath, I guess.
You like heartbreak. You listen to the Prime Minister too much. I mean, I support Manchester United, so... Wait, no, we're doing good. Not heartbreak anymore.
Oh,
bye-bye, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, today is a good day to have a good day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Hi kids, your boy Tim Tim here, welcoming you to Disneyland, the biggest kids Juve party in the carnival. Only listen, Sunday, January 29th, all roads lead to the Queen's Park Savannah. I will be there with my brand new partner, Soca Monster, who is asleep right now. Soca Monster, man, boy. People here, boy. Disneyland, boy.
Partner, Disneyland tickets are out, you know. Watch me. It's kids with paint, water, and soca in the savannah. I get in my rest now, so I can get the earliest early bird. Wait now! Is sleep you gonna and sleep too? Like you trying to get them tickets before me?
In the barricade. Make sure you get tickets early, cause them tickets selling already. We have icons, yes, we have legends, and the young upcoming sensations. Become party, social commentary. We have something for everybody. Pressure for them, joker, faker, and lows. Come to Kaiso House.
Kaiso House in the Barricade, Queen's Park, Savannah, January 27th to February 17th, 2023. Tickets available at
Kaiso House in the Savannah, Crosby's Music Center, St. James, Cambule Restaurant, San Fernando, Ulsa Complex, Grand Bazaar, and Tuco Main Office, Jerningham Avenue, Belmont.
Meet me in the Barricade.
Ping pong 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 pong. It's Naila.
Viking ding dong.
Down.
Pretty, yeah. All I need is a good time. All I need is my friends by my side. No stresses as day and night. No fight is only good fight. So tell them take the time because we going right down. I see the rum can't waste our fun.
I am Rondell Donowa, and you are watching WESN, the content capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
I'm Andre L. Batiste, and you're watching WESN, the Content Capital.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
I'm Andy Johnson, and you're watching WESN, the Content Capital.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
I'm Sean Michael Small, and we are WESN, the Content Capital.
Living in victory every day.
Inspire, motivate, encourage, hope. It's about topical issues. It's about everything that you would want to know about hope, about life. At the end, you're going to say, yes, if he can do it, I can do it too. If she can, I can do it too.
No matter what they say, living in victory every day.
Nicole Lawson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
I am Mahi Sekas, and you are watching WESN, the Content Capital.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Young at heart, purpose-driven, patriot even. When you like to party, but are still passionate about discussing important issues, the only place where your needs will be met is WESN, Content Capital.
AM Prime on WESN, the only place from 6 to 7:30 a.m. where you can get the most analytical and thorough interviews and regional reports.
The Barbados Labour Party, led by the Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley, once again able to achieve a clean sweep in yesterday's general election.
I think a lot of people have underestimated the power of Tobago nationalism.
If the government is afraid to say it, I, Martin George, I am saying it this morning on your show, Andy, there will be no carnival before Ash Wednesday.
Grab a cup of coffee and start your day right watching AM Prime with Andy Johnson weekdays from 6 a.m. only on your content capital, WESN.
I am Kemuel Pascal and we are WESN, Content Capital.
I'm Keaton Shaw, and we are WESN, the Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
I'm Andre L. Batiste, and you're watching WESN, the Content Capital.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
Hi kids, your boy Tim Tim here, welcoming you to Disneyland, the biggest kids Juve party in the carnival. Only listen, Sunday, January 29th, all roads lead to the Queen's Park Savannah. I will be there with my brand new partner, Soca Monster. Who is asleep right now? Soca Monster, man, boy. People here, boy. Disneyland, boy.
Partner, Disneyland tickets are out, you know. Watch me. There's kids with paint, water, and soca in the savannah. I get in my rest now, so I can get the earliest early bird. Wait now! Is sleep you gonna and sleep too? Like you trying to get them tickets before me? Disneyland!
The perfect mix of news, current affairs, talk, debate, mature discussions, comedy and sports. Only at WESN, the Content Capital.
And the quiet girl, Ireland.
Here are the nominees for Best Animated Feature Film. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Marcel the Shell with Shoes Off. Puss in Boots, The Last Book. The Sea Beast. And Turning Red.
Here are the nominees for achievement in makeup and hairstyling. All Quiet on the Western Front, The Batman, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Elvis, and The Whale. Here are the nominees for achievement in production design. All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar, The Way of Water, Babylon, Elvis, and The Fabelmans.
The nominees for achievement in film editing are The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Tar, and Top Gun Maverick.
Next up, the nominees for achievement in cinematography. All Quiet on the Western Front, Bardo, False Chronicle and a Handful of Truths, Elvis, Empire of Light, and Tar.
And now, achievement in visual effects. All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar, The Way of Water, The Batman, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and Top Gun, Maverick. It's time for our final 4 awards. Here are the nominees for performance by an actor in a leading role. Austin Butler in Elvis. Colin Farrell in The Banshees of Inisherin. Brendan Fraser in The Whale. Paul Mescal in After Sun. And Bill Nye in Living.
And now the 5 nominees for performance by an actress in a leading role. Cate Blanchett in Tar. Ana de Armas in Blonde. Andrea Riseborough in To Leslie. Michelle Williams in The Fabelmans. And Michelle Yeoh in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Just 2 categories remain. The first is achievement in directing, and the nominees are Martin McDonagh, The Banshees of Inisherin, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Steven Spielberg, The Fabelmans, Todd Field, Tar, and Ruben Östlund, Triangle of Sadness.
Now the final category. Here are the 10 nominees for Best Motion Picture of the Year.
All Quiet on the Western Front. Malte Grünet, producer.
Avatar, The Way of Water. James Cameron and John Landau, producers.
The Banshees of Inisherin. Graham Broadbent, Pete Chernine, and Martin McDonough, producers.
Elvis, Baz Luhrmann, Catherine Martin, Gail Berman, Patrick McCormick, and Skylar Weiss, producers.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. Daniel Kwan, Daniel Scheinert, and Jonathan Wong, producers.
The Fablemans, Christy McCosco-Krieger, Steven Spielberg, and Tony Kushner, producers.
Tar, Todd Field, Alexandra Milshon, and Scott Lambert, producers.
Top Gun Maverick, Tom Cruise, Christopher McQuarrie, David Ellison, and Jerry Bruckheimer, producers.
Triangle of Sadness, Eric Hemmendorf and Philippe Gobert, producers.
And Women Talking, Dee Dee Gardner, Jeremy Kleiner, and Frances McDormand, producers.
This was such an honor, and huge congratulations to all the nominees.
I hope you really soak up this moment and enjoy everything that lies ahead.
And in case you didn't know, Saturday, February 11th is Global Movie Day. So go see the nominated movies at your local theater, tell them we sent you, and be better prepared for your Oscar pool.
And thank you for joining us, and be sure to watch the 95th Oscars live with host Jimmy Kimmel, Sunday, March 12th.
Well, there you have it, an advert to watch the 95th Oscars ceremony. We've been listening, of course, Alison, to those nominees there. We started off at the first half of the programme looking at some of the kind of, early nominees. What more can you tell us about the main films? Some of them have got several nominations there.
That's right, Rochelle. We saw really a lot of crossover there between Best Picture and Best Director. Just to list some of the ones that are up for both of those awards, Everything Everywhere All at Once, along with directors Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, The Banshees of Inisherin, Martin McDonough, up film and director, The Fablemans with Steven Spielberg, both nominated, Todd Field's Tar, again, film and director, and then Triangle of Sadness, nominated along with Swedish director Ruben Östlund. That film, you might remember, won the Palme d'Or at Cannes this year, and then we also saw, again, a couple blockbusters also getting nods for Best Picture. We had Top Gun Maverick, Avatar, The Way of Water. So 2 sequels, 2 big blockbusters in the running. Also Baz Luhrmann's Elvis in the running for Best Picture, although Baz Luhrmann himself did not get the director nod. That's the same for Women Talking by Sarah Polley. She, as a director, didn't get the nomination, but the film did. So again, which makes the fact that if you look at the Best Director category, all of those men this year. That comes after 2 years in a row where women won Best Director. It looks like that's not going to be the case this year in that category. Not a lot of surprises in the actor and actress categories. Michelle Yeoh and Cate Blanchett both up for Best Actress, along with Ana de Armas for Blonde, Andrea Riseborough, and then Michelle Williams for The Fablemans, which is actually an interesting one because Michelle Williams plays the character who's the equivalent of Steven Spielberg's mother in the film, so it technically could have been in the supporting actress category, but submitted herself to that Best Actress category with the support of the film team. So that's an interesting one, kind of making the case that perhaps the role of mother in a film does, mean Best Leading Actress and not supporting character necessarily. Absolutely. So that's an interesting one to watch. And then for the Best Male Actor, we have Austin Butler for his role playing Elvis Presley in the biopic Elvis. That's a category he's one of the frontrunners for. The other big frontrunner for actor is Brendan Fraser for his role in The Whale. He plays a morbidly obese professor in that film that's supposed to be incredibly moving. It looks very sad. And then Colin Farrell getting a nod for The Banshees of Inisherin, another one up for Best Film, Best Director, and then Best Lead Actor. And then Bill Nye for Living, and then Paul Mescal, an interesting one. As well, another Irish actor worth pointing out. So these Oscars, kind of a big year for Irish actors, if you look at that with The Banshees of Inisherin, and then a nomination for Paul Mescal as well.
And of course, the best international features coming out within that second half, Alison.
That's right, and it's an interesting one as well because we have one film that's actually nominated for Best International Feature as well as Best Picture. That's All Quiet on the Western Front. Now, that film is actually from Netflix, interestingly. It's Germany's entry to Best International Picture. It's directed by Edward Berger. It's a German-language adaptation of the classic 1928 anti-war novel by Erich Maria Remarque. So that's an interesting one to watch. The English language adaptation won Best Picture all the way back in 1930 when it came out. So very solid source material there. This, of course, is the German language version submitted by Germany. And it is possible for a film to win in both categories, in Best International Feature and then Best Feature. You'll remember that Parasite from South Korea did that back in 2020. So it's quite possible that we could see Germany's All Quiet on the Western Front take both of those categories. And I think, Rochelle, that we can potentially play a clip of that movie as well.
Well, let's double check, Alison. Can we play a clip of that movie? Or perhaps we'll take a look.
Schließen wir Frieden. Ich hab Angst vor dem, was kommt.
Du musst jetzt tapfer sein. Für die, die es nicht geschafft haben. Für uns alle.
That was a look at All Quiet on the Western Front, up for Best Picture as well as Best International Feature. The other frontrunner, Rochelle, in the international category is Argentina 1985 from director Santiago Mitre. That one is about the historic 1985 trial of Argentina's military government. It looks like quite a powerful film as well, and another historic one.
Well, we're sold on this 95th Oscars ceremony. Alison, thank you very much for kind of fleshing out those films for us. Stay with us here on our Live from Paris programme. We'll take a short break. We'll be back on the other side. See you then. Bye.
Je me fais des remarques, des critiques, je me critique tout seul en temps. J'avais une très belle vie et là, ce n'est plus une vie, dans ces conditions, je ne veux plus. Sinon, moi, personnellement, j'étais une personne qui aime la vie, qui aimait la vie. J'allais déjà mal et ensuite, quand j'ai eu le refus, ça n'a pas... C'est triste quand on entend des histoires, des vies comme ça. Après tout, on est des êtres humains, on ne peut pas rester froid. Bon, après, on essaie de se tenir et se retenir aussi. C'est un moment où on essaie de faire passer ensuite, pensant à des choses plus positives.
En général, c'est des situations très stressantes. Et donc, c'est les interprètes qui gèrent en première ligne, qui sont là à l'écoute et qui nous transmettent les demandes.
J'aimerais bien les aider parce que moi, je viens d'Afghanistan, moi je suis pas français et j'ai galéré dans ma vie. Ça me rend triste aussi de temps en temps, mais moi je pense que ça c'est un truc obligé pour moi. C'est mon métier, je dois le faire ça.
WESN.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thank you for joining us. Here are the headlines. 2 fake police officers crash stolen vehicle. Prime Minister says NGC saves country billions. Promoters Association requesting FOIA. And internationally, China's North Pole sees record cold temperatures. Now for the details. 2 thieves are currently warded in serious condition after crashing a car they earlier stole from a police officer. Reports indicate that the 2 suspects, who pretended they were police officers, remain warded under police guard at the Mount Hope Hospital. Around 12:45 a.m., the men robbed an officer of his vehicle at his Vega de Arapuch Road, Sangre Grande home. The stolen car was later found crashed at the side of the Eastern Main Road in Valencia near the tourism center. Officers then went to the Arima District Hospital where they found 2 men fitting the description of the robbers being attended to by doctors for injuries consistent with a car crash. The men were also in possession of the stolen items. NGC has saved this country billions of dollars. So says Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley in his keynote address at the 2023 Energy Conference on Monday.
The success has been achieved through the execution of 29 upstream gas sales contracts, 97 downstream gas sale contracts, and the resolution of failure to supply claims amounting to over 8 billion Trinidad and Tobago dollars.
The Trinidad and Tobago Promoters Association plans to file a Freedom of Information request as it relates to police intervention in the licensing arrangement and to discover what aspect of the court policy mandates this. In a conference on Monday, the association said despite meetings with the police last year, there still exists exorbitant cost to hire police to be at events. In August, following a meeting, the TTPS was re-evaluating and monitoring its policies and procedures for extra duty arrangements with FET promoters and event organizers to reduce the likelihood of irregularities and discrepancies. The association's president, Jerome Presilla, said that none of this had actually happened. In international news now, China's northernmost city, Mohi, has recorded its lowest temperature since records began. Mohi, known as China's North Pole, is in the province of Heilongjiang, close to the Russian border. On Sunday, its local meteorological station recorded a record low temperature of minus 53 degrees Celsius at 7 a.m. The previous coldest temperature on record in the city was minus 52.3 Celsius in 1969. However, the temperature is still shy of China's national record. Well, that was your News to the Hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Good day and welcome to another episode of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. I am Rondell Dono, attorney at law, and I am happy to be back. I know we had a short break from the show, but we are back and we are ready to begin our new episodes. Of course, you can stream us on our social media platform, WESN CC, podcast, Strictly Legal with Rondell Donwa, and of course, our traditional media. Getting right into the program, we are dealing with publicity in negative publicity in criminal trials. More importantly, the impact of delay and media publicity that is, and how negative or what type of impact it has on fair on having a fair trial, or the accused person having a fair trial. And of course, I have on set again attorney at law Farid Ali. He is probably the most frequent guest of mine, and that is because of his wealth of knowledge, as well as we are continuing the conversation from, I know we had the last episode of evidence in trial, and we are going to continue the talk on evidence because it's very important, particularly as it relates to a lot of time we're seeing that persons are using camera phones, persons are speaking about trials publicly because we are incensed by crime. And of course, persons feel as though detection rates, I know we would have spoken previously, detection rate right now is approximately 18%. So because of this, persons want to see justice. And whether or not publicity or whether or not pre-trial publicity is fair to the accused. And I will bring Mr. Ali on set now. Good morning, Farid. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Donovan. It's a pleasure to be here. It's good to see you.
And thanks for coming once again. I know you answered that call, and we are really grateful for that. Of course, I know on the last episode we dealt with evidence. We dealt with the trial process, the criminal trial process. What is preliminary inquiries? What is a summary trial? What is indictable? And of course, leading on to that, I want us to discuss more particularly with pre-trial publicity. I know we would have mentioned it very briefly, but I want to get into more detail as to why is it that pre-trial publicity can negatively affect the justice system, or rather the accused person being treated fairly at trials.
Right. If we were to consider the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago speaks under Section 4 of one's right to a fair trial and a fair hearing. That is captured essentially in Section 5, subsection 2F of the Constitution, which speaks to every accused person, everyone who's before the court. That individual is entitled to a fair trial, a fair hearing, and they are also entitled to the presumption of innocence. The presumption of innocence is simply this. When you come before the court will treat you as an individual, an accused person, as somebody who is innocent until the evidence proves you otherwise, or proves you guilty.
Indeed.
So the thing with pre-trial publicity, when it is you have these what we may call high-profile cases, we have serious criminal matters that the public may have an interest in. If we look back into our history, we have a very colorful history in this country where persons were brought before the court who had a reputation before they were actually charged for the particular offense for which they're answering. Some prime examples of that would be the Yasin Abu Bakr. He was projectively the leader of the Muslimin.
Yeah.
And in 1990, there was an attempted coup. So by the time he gets the trial, for whatever matter, that reputation of being the leader of the Muslimin movement, that precedes him. One of the most notorious ones and the more popular ones in this country would have been the one that is associated with Nanki Sin Budram, the person who is commonly referred to as Dole Chedi. In 1994, there was a very popular, very famous criminal case born out of the fact that it was alleged, and I am saying it is alleged because we're taking it in the context of the matter hasn't started. It was eventually ruled against Chedi. The court ruled that he was guilty in terms of the jury found him guilty. But Chedi had an issue with the fairness of a trial in Trinidad and Tobago. His reputation as a known drug leader and as a known conspirator in terms of criminality and persons who were involved in the drug trade never really allowed for him to be viewed in the eyes of the public as somebody who is capable of any good. So the issue that arose in his trial process was simple. He is saying that he could never get a fair trial in Trinidad and Tobago because the persons and citizens of this country view him in a very negative light. What transpired out of that is the newsprint in this country carried a number of editorials highlighting what they consider to be his disreputable conduct and things that he was associated with in his mind that were untrue. Yeah. So that really touches the heart of pre-trial publicity. What was carried in some of the newspapers and the articles reflect, and I'm just giving you a very, very brief outline. It said, one article carried that top US diplomat in coke scam, and this was carried on the front page of the TNT Mirror in September 1994. Some of the other things that were carried in the Sunday Mirror was he was a convicted drug dealer. Telephone calls were made from a cellular phone from his cells, calling hits on other persons. So though he was the subject of this particular trial, he was arrested on occasions before, and every time he was arrested, the witnesses in the matters who were offering evidence against him would disappear.
Let's take a pin. But can't the media now argue, of course, freedom of the press to inform the citizens as their charter states?
The Director of Public Prosecutions has a role to play in every criminal trial. Yes. He has a dual function. His function is not just to carry the evidence in a courtroom and lay the evidence before the court, but his function is also to make some input in ensuring that the streams of justice isn't polluted and isn't contaminated by the work of the media. In other words, the balance between freedom of the press being able to carry certain things and say certain things concerning the editorial around their story. The Director of Public Prosecutions, can step into that arena and write to the media houses, get involved in terms of inform the media that you can only carry so much, and to be very, very careful about what you put in newsprint, because when readers out there read about what the media is telegraphing to them, or they listen to what they're hearing on social media, or they listen to what is being said, they begin to relive and to exist within the narrative that is being carried. So the balance that has to be carried is whether the director should get involved before the trial starts and try to constrain what is put into the public space concerning an individual or the facts of a matter. That is why it is very often lawyers are said not to try your case in the media, not to go out there and start representing the interests of your client, offering information that amongst nearly evidence. And you're leading your evidence through newsprint and through social media and through YouTube and television and books and any form of streaming. Yes. So the director could simply call out on the attorney and said, listen, this matter is before the court. You should not be carrying any storyline, reading any byline. And it was ruled that that balance between that balance in order to achieve fair play between freedom of the press and the role of the DPP to control what comes into public space must be established very early. However, what we got in the Dole Shady matter, what happened in that is very simple. There was the Babulal family, 4 persons met their demise. The story simply carried forward indicated that Dole Shady called a hit on the Babulal family. Yeah. Gunmen turned up at his house, 8 gunmen, and having turned up at the family's home, there were 2 persons who turned state witnesses, Clint Huggins and Levi Morris.
And we know what happened.
Both of those individuals turned state witnesses, and they offered evidence for the prosecution against the Gang of 8. And what evolved out of that situation is that they were saying that Dole Shady organized the entire episode. He was the conspirator. He's the one who planned the episode. And the men turned up in those days in 1994 with two 38 guns, 244 and 2 9mm. Now in modern times that's jokey weapons, but it was serious weapons in that context. Now, simply put, the Shady's defense team involving senior counsel Frank Solomon and Desmond Alum, they offered to the court that there should be a stay of prosecution. A stay of prosecution is where the trial process should be stopped, because we cannot get anybody willing to stand before this court in terms of jurors who are willing to put their lives at risk, given the fact that there has been rumors that everyone or most witnesses who have offered evidence against this man in the past met their demise, and it was alleged that he was responsible. So what the courts of Trinidad and Tobago, the judiciary did, is they set up a court in the Northwestern Peninsula in Chaguaramas. Separate witnesses were airlifted into the courtroom situation, and the trial process began. This began somewhere in around July 1996. There was a verdict by September, but the process to vet the jurors was an extensive process. Amendment had to be done to the Jury Act, because many jurors expressed qualms about being able to offer themselves and to be unbiased.
And of course, you have the law when it comes to the Jury Act, that there's only certain exceptions that will disallow a prospective juror from participating in the trial process.
Right. And this is all part of the ruling of the court. This matter went all the way to the Privy Council. The Court of Appeal made a ruling in terms of whether he can get a fair trial. The Court of Appeal said that he can get a fair trial in this country. They went to the Privy Council in appealing the Court of Appeal's decision, because Shady was insistent that he couldn't get it. What the court is saying, the best constraints and the best control mechanisms that are in place to ensure that fair trials persist in this country would be the criminal court itself. So it starts from the jury section. When the jurors are being selected, the prosecution and the defense has an opportunity to vet the jurors, to ask questions of them whether they think that they offer a reasonable verdict in this. And if it is at the end of the process, we can find 12 persons, and we did in this instance find 12 persons and 8 alternates. The trial process proceeded. It also meant that the judge has a part to play. He can direct the jury when they're going to deliberate on a decision, and tell them very, very succinctly that you need to separate yourself from the editorial, from the innuendo surrounding the individual, and allow yourself to make a decision purely based on the evidence. So pre-trial publicity, it's important to recognize that the control mechanisms essentially lies with the court. The Privy Council ruled that though the Director of Public Prosecutions in the case of Dolchedy didn't directly get involved and put control mechanisms in place in terms of instructing the media what they can and cannot carry, it doesn't in itself prejudice the ability of the court to manage and regulate the evidence in the courtroom, so much so to control the jurors on the level of imparting to them the need to separate themselves. So in order to achieve a fair trial in any criminal court, you need the input of the Director of Public Prosecutions before the trial starts. You need the